Mr. Haynes, from a legal perspective, what is kind of the value of having the victims? You know what I mean? Like, as you were saying in your interview, that the prosecution is the one kind of saying who's responsible and everything. So legally, what do the victims kind of offer?
Well, I think we've reached a point in the 21st century where we no longer adhere to the old model, the old Anglo-American model of a bipartisan adversarial system in which victims' rights and voices are not heard. And this is an international court, and so necessarily it has to reflect not just the common law, the Anglo-Saxon system, but also the civil law system in which parties civil take place. It's a Lebanese court in which victims have a place in the courtroom. So from a legal perspective, it reflects the development of international practice, and it reflects the practice of the country whose law the court is bound to provide. Taking that broader, it enables the victims to have some say in the way proceedings are conducted once they come before the court. They have no place in the investigative phase, but when it comes here, they have a position to take. I'll give you a clear example. It is likely to be suggested in a few days or weeks' time that this whole trial should be suspended to allow Mary to join in. The victims are likely to be opposed to that, you know.
Yeah,
They're likely to say, "Who's Mary? Why does he matter? Does he make any difference to our perspective of the truth? Why should the trial be adjourned for months or even years?" So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, and so what role, if any, do you have? You know, exactly, because I imagine they wanted this started much longer ago. So do you have any role or ability to influence prosecution at all, or?
Well, this might be repetitive, but you know, when the prosecution file and say we want to join Mr. Merry to this indictment, and we agree that Mr. Merry's lawyers will need 4-6 months to get ready, we have the right to reply and say, actually, we don't agree with that, and that's a legal right. It's within the statute and the rules and the decisions of the pre-trial judge and the trial chamber.
And do you believe, the last question, do you believe going forward, in terms of international law in general, that kind of, should there be more tribunals, like, do you think that this sets a precedent that will allow victims to be part of, you know, any further tribunals that might happen in the future? You understand what I mean? Like,
I know exactly your question. This is the third tribunal which victims have been allowed to participate. They're allowed to participate before the Extraordinary Courts of Cambodia, or Extraordinary Chambers of the Courts of Cambodia. They're allowed to participate at the ICC, and they participate here. The participation here is very different because there are 65 people participating here. You know, there are thousands participating in the other courts. And so the victims are much more of a remote concept. They're like a sort of class of people, whereas here they tend to be more like individuals. It's my ambition to make the precedent here. I mean, you will hear me say this afternoon, I've got no intention of acting as a second prosecutor, and I've got no intention of acting as the Hariri family lawyer. I'm here to do what the statute and the rules tell me I can do, and I think with a bit of luck, if we do this properly, then it will establish a precedent that victims' participation is a good thing for the proceedings, not just for the victims.
And actually, one more thing, since you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mohammed Mahtar, who's working in the office, was actually the Hariri family lawyer. Does that present any sort of conflict of interest, or?
Well, I can't apologise for everything that happened. We were appointed. It seemed inevitable, given that one of the factions of the groups of victims was the Hariri family and his employees, that it was easier to have their lawyer as part of the team. Equally, Nada Abdel Fattah Abu Samra had a lot of clients from amongst the bystanders, and so that was a facilitation, really. They put me in charge of them to try and, to make sure that perception was just a perception. It's another perception I'll try and remove when I speak to the public this afternoon. No, it's not a problem. I mean, it obviously it means that we have a relationship with the Hariri family. I mean, I've met Saad Hariri, you know, before now, and doubtless will continue to do so.